The soft beeping of machines filled the quiet room as Diane Miller checked the monitors one last time before her shift ended. After 8 years working at the Horizon Deep Space Monitoring Station, she knew every sound the station made. Every normal sound, that is. When a new tone rang out from her console, Diane straightened in her chair. The station sat at the edge of our solar system, far from Earth, built to listen to the stars. Most days brought nothing but the usual cosmic background noise. This was not most days. "Computer, identify signal source," she said, her fingers already moving across the screen. The signal was faint but steady. It pulsed in a pattern that was too regular to be natural. Signal origin: unknown. Distance calculation: approximately 4.7 light years. Signal pattern: artificial. Diane's heart beat faster. An artificial signal from beyond our solar system could only mean one thing. "Record and analyze pattern," she ordered the computer. "Priority level 1. The main screen lit up with waves of data as the computer processed the signal. Diane called her supervisor, Joe Fisher. "Joe, you need to see this," she said when he answered. "We're picking up what looks like an artificial signal from beyond our system." Joe arrived within minutes, his face serious as he studied the data. "How long has it been coming in?" he asked. "About 20 minutes now," Diane replied. "The pattern repeats every 90 seconds. Joe nodded slowly. "Call Earth Command, use the direct line." Within an hour, the station buzzed with activity. The signal had everyone's attention now. The best code breakers and language experts on Earth worked to understand the message hidden in the pattern of beeps and silences. Dr. Ben White, head of the translation team, finally made the breakthrough after 30 hours of nonstop work. "It's a distress call," he announced to the room, full of scientists and military personnel. "The mathematics are universal. They're using prime numbers as a base, then building more complex concepts." He pointed to his screen where the translated message appeared. "Emergency. Vessels trapped. Gravitational field of collapsed star. Engines failing. Life support systems critical. Population 2.3 million. Children aboard. Cannot escape. Any species who receives this message, we ask for help. We are the Valkyrie." The room fell silent. Humanity had wondered for centuries if we were alone in the universe. Now we had our answer, and it came as a cry for help. Admiral Lisa Conway of Earth Space Command spoke first. "How much time do they have?" Dr. White consulted his data. "Based on the degradation of their signal and what they've told us about their life support, I'd estimate 30 days, maybe less." "And how far away are they?" "The signal took 4.7 years to reach us, but they're caught in the gravity well of a collapsed star which is affecting the signal. Our best calculations put them about 4.3 light years away." Admiral Conway frowned. "Even our fastest ships need months to cover that distance." Captain Gregory Hayes stepped forward. He was tall and lean, with gray hair at his temples and eyes that had seen too much during the Mars conflicts. "With all due respect, Admiral, that's not quite true. Project Lightjump was deemed too risky for normal operations. But the prototype engines are installed on the science vessel Daybreak. They could make the journey in 25 days. "Those engines haven't been properly tested," Conway objected. "They've been tested enough to know they work," Hayes countered. "Just not enough to satisfy the safety boards." Dr. White looked up from his screen. "There's another thing. The Valkyrie mentioned they have children aboard. They're not just a research team or explorers. This sounds like a generation ship, possibly their entire civilization." Admiral Conway walked to the window looking out at the stars. When she turned back, her face was resolved. "Captain Hayes, how quickly can Daybreak be ready for launch?" 72 hours if we pull in every engineer available." "Make it 48, Conway ordered, "and we'll need more than one ship. Get me a list of every vessel that can be retrofitted with Project Lightjump technology or any other experimental drive system we have." "A rescue fleet?" "That will take government approval," Hayes said. "I'll get it," Conway replied. 2 million lives are at stake. I don't care what planet they're from." Word of the alien distress call spread quickly once the governments of Earth were notified. The United Nations called an emergency session, and for once, the world's leaders acted with unusual speed and unity. Volunteers flooded in from every country. Retired space pilots offered their services. Engineers worked around the clock. Medical teams prepared for unknown alien biology. Ordinary citizens donated supplies and money to fund what would be the most ambitious space mission in human history. Captain Hayes found himself in charge of the lead rescue ship, now renamed Unity. The ship hummed with activity as the launch deadline approached. Equipment was loaded, systems tested, and the experimental light jump engines prepared. Dr. Olivia Wright joined him on the bridge. As the mission's chief xenobiologist, she had the impossible task of preparing for first contact with the species in crisis. "How do you prepare to help aliens we know nothing about?" Hayes asked her. Dr. Wright smiled nervously. "I've built models based on the few details we have. Their message used similar math concepts to ours, which suggests some common ways of thinking. The fact that they breathe and need life support means they probably have some biological needs similar to ours." "That's not much to go on," Hayes observed. "No," Wright admitted, "but we're bringing as many universal tools and adaptable systems as possible, and sometimes just showing up makes all the difference." 40 hours after the signal was translated, the rescue fleet was nearly ready. 5 ships, each loaded with different specialized equipment. Unity would lead, with Horizon, Pathfinder, Guardian, and Mercy following. In his quarters, Hayes recorded a personal log. "We launch in 8 hours on a mission unlike any in human history. We're traveling to save beings we've never met, from a species we didn't know existed until 2 days ago. The risks are enormous. The light jump engines could fail. The Valkyrie might be hostile despite their distress call. We might arrive too late. But not going isn't an option. Not anymore." They asked for help across the stars, not knowing if anyone would hear, not knowing if anyone would care. "We heard. We care. That has to mean something. This mission changes everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. We are not alone. And our first act as a species that knows this truth will be one of rescue, not conquest or fear. Whatever happens, I believe that counts for something." As the first rays of dawn touched the launch pad, the Unity lifted off, carrying the hopes of humanity and the promise of help to a distant, dying fleet. The largest hangar at Kennedy Space Center had never been so busy. People rushed in all directions, carrying tools and equipment. The noise of welding and hammering filled the air. In the center of all this activity stood Admiral Kate Warren, watching as workers swarmed over the 5 ships that would soon journey farther than any human had ever gone. Admiral Warren had been enjoying her retirement fishing at her lake house when the call came. Now 3 days later, she was in charge of humanity's first alien rescue mission. "How are the modifications coming?" she asked Chief Engineer Paul Davis, who walked up with a tablet in his hand. Davis looked tired. Dark circles hung under his eyes. Like everyone else working on the project, he had barely slept in the past 72 hours. "The tractor beam systems are installed on Unity and Horizon," he said. "We're still working on the other 3 ships. These systems were never meant to pull something as big as the Valkyrie ships, but our calculations show they should work if we combine the power of all 5 ships." Warren nodded. "And the engines?" "The light jump drives are ready on all ships. We've run every test we can without actually jumping. They should get us there in 25 days. "Should?" Warren raised an eyebrow. Davis smiled weakly. "That's the best I can offer. These engines were still experimental until 3 days ago." Across the hangar, Dr. Olivia Wright supervised the loading of the medical supplies. As the mission's lead xenobiologist, she faced the impossible task of preparing to treat alien patients she knew nothing about. "Pack everything," she told her team. "If it can diagnose, analyze, or synthesize, I want it on these ships." A young medical officer looked at her with doubt. "How do we treat aliens we've never seen? What if their body chemistry is completely different?" Dr. Wright placed a hand on the officer's shoulder. "We start with universal principles. Everything needs energy. Everything needs to maintain some kind of balance in their systems. We bring tools that can analyze their biology quickly and adapt. And then we do what doctors have always done. We listen, we learn, and we help." On the other side of the hangar, Captain Grant checked the crew roster for Unity, the lead ship. Many of the names were unfamiliar to him. People had volunteered from every space program on Earth. Some had come out of retirement. Others had been in training when the call went out. Lieutenant Ryan Cooper approached him with a concerned look on his face. Cooper would pilot one of the smaller scout ships, Pathfinder. "Captain, permission to speak freely?" Cooper asked. Grant nodded. "Always." "Are we sure this isn't a trap? We're risking 5 ships and over 200 crew members based on a single message. What if the Valkyrie aren't really in trouble? What if they're hostile?" Grant considered the question. It wasn't the first time someone had raised this concern. "The possibility exists," he admitted. "But think about it. A species advanced enough to trick us this way would be advanced enough to attack us directly if that was their goal. Why create such an elaborate trap?" Cooper frowned. "I still don't understand why we're risking so much. For aliens we don't even know." Flight Commander Linda Martinez had been listening nearby. She joined the conversation. "When I was 10, she said, I got lost hiking with my family. Night was falling and I was scared. A stranger found me, a woman who spoke a different language. She couldn't understand my words, but she knew I needed help. She walked miles out of her way to bring me back to my parents. She didn't know me. She didn't have to help, but she did because I was in trouble." Martinez looked Cooper in the eye. "That's what we do. That's who we are at our best. It doesn't matter if they're from Earth or from across the galaxy. They asked for help. We answer." Cooper didn't look completely convinced, but he nodded respectfully and returned to his duties. As launch preparations continued, the world watched. News stations broadcast live from the Space Center. Crowds gathered outside the gates, holding signs supporting the mission. For the first time in decades, Earth seemed united by a common purpose. In the ship Unity's communications center, Officer Ben Lee made one final check of the message they would broadcast as they approached the Valkyrie fleet. "We've based it on the mathematical patterns from their distress call," he explained to Captain Grant. "It says, 'We received your message. We are coming to help. We are humans from the planet Earth.'" Grant read through the transmission on the screen. Simple and clear. Let's hope they understand it. With 12 hours left before launch, Admiral Warren called all mission leaders to a final briefing. The room fell silent as she stood before the large screen showing their flight plan. "I won't lie to you," she began. "This mission has risks unlike any we've faced before. We're using experimental technology. We're attempting to rescue a species we know nothing about. The margin for error is slim." She looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. "But no matter what happens, remember this. Today, humanity steps forward as a species that answers calls for help, even across the stars. Whatever we find out there, we bring our best selves, our courage, our ingenuity, our compassion." She pointed to the screen, which now showed the translated alien distress call. "They asked for help," she said simply. "We're going to give it to them." The final hours before launch passed quickly. Crew members made last calls to family. Engineers ran final system checks. Medical teams secured their equipment for the journey ahead. On the bridge of Unity, Captain Grant settled into the command chair as his crew took their positions around him. The main screen showed the other 4 ships, all ready for departure. "All systems check complete," reported his first officer, Commander Samantha Wells. "Unity is ready for launch." Grant pressed the button that opened the communication channel to all 5 ships. "This is Captain Grant. Our mission is clear. We have 25 days of travel to reach the Valkyrie fleet. Every day counts. Their lives depend on our speed, our skill, and our determination." He paused, looking at the eager and nervous faces of his bridge crew. "Remember your training, trust your teammates, and take pride in what we do today. Humanity has wondered for centuries if we are alone in the universe. Now we know we are not, and our first act as a species that knows this truth will be one of rescue." He nodded to his communications officer. "Send the countdown to all ships." The massive engines of all 5 ships hummed to life. their power building as the countdown reached 0. With a flash of blue energy, the Unity lifted off first, climbing through Earth's atmosphere. The other ships followed close behind. As they cleared Earth's orbit, Captain Grant gave the order they had all been waiting for. Prepare light jump drives. Set course for the Valkyrie coordinates. The stars on the view screen seemed to stretch and bend as the experimental engines engaged. In a brilliant flash of light, the rescue fleet disappeared from Earth's sky, beginning the longest journey humans had ever attempted. The mission to save the doomed alien fleet had begun. The first week aboard Unity passed in a blur of activity. The crew settled into a routine of constant system checks and training drills. The experimental light jump engines pushed the ships faster than humans had ever traveled before, but the journey was far from smooth. Captain Alan Grant recorded in his daily log, Day 7 of transit. The light jump drives are performing beyond expectations, but the strain on the ships is concerning. Chief Engineer Richards hasn't slept in 30 hours, constantly adjusting the systems to prevent overload. Grant walked through the narrow corridors of Unity, checking on his crew. In the engine room, he found Jeff Richards bent over a control panel, his face pale with exhaustion. "You need to rest, Jeff," Grant said, placing a hand on the engineer's shoulder. Richards shook his head. "These engines were never meant to run this long without a break. If they fail, we're stranded in deep space. If you collapse from exhaustion, we might be in the same situation," Grant countered. 4 hours of sleep, that's an order." In the medical bay, Dr. Olivia Wright and her team ran simulations based on the limited data they had about the Valkyrie. They had created dozens of possible biological models preparing for any scenario they might face. "What if they breathe methane instead of oxygen?" asked one of the medical officers. "Then we adapt," Dr. Wright replied. "We've brought equipment to create almost any atmospheric mix. We've prepared treatments that can work across different biological systems. We plan for everything and then we improvise when we meet them." On the bridge, Communications Officer Diane Miller worked tirelessly to refine their translation algorithms. The original distress message had given them a basic understanding of Valkyrie communication, but they would need much more to coordinate a rescue. "Any progress?" Captain Grant asked as he stopped by her station. Miller nodded, her eyes tired but excited. "I've identified several patterns in their language. It's based on mathematical principles similar to the way we use math, but with unique variations. I think we'll be able to communicate with them, at least on a basic level." On day 15, the fleet encountered the first major crisis. The light jump engine on the medical ship Mercy began to overheat, forcing an emergency shutdown that brought the ship back to normal space. The other ships quickly followed, unwilling to leave Mercy behind. "Damage report," Grant demanded as soon as communications were restored. "The primary cooling system has failed," came the reply from Mercy's captain. "We're switching to backups, but repairs will take at least 12 hours. Grant's face remained calm, but inside his mind raced with calculations. Every hour delayed meant lives lost on the Valkyrie ships. Unity will remain with Mercy, he decided. Horizon, Pathfinder, and Guardian will continue ahead at reduced speed. We'll catch up once repairs are complete. The fleet split as ordered. While engineers from both ships worked on Mercy's damaged engine, Grant called a meeting with his senior officers. "We're still on schedule to reach the Valkyrie with a day to spare," he told them. "But our margin for error is now 0. We can't afford any more delays." Lieutenant Cooper, who had been skeptical before the mission, spoke up. "What if we push the engines even harder on the final approach? We could cut another 6 hours off our travel time." "And risk more breakdowns?" Chief Engineer Richards objected. "It's a calculated risk," Cooper replied. "But if I'm going to risk my life for these aliens, I'd rather it not be for nothing because we arrived too late." Grant studied the young officer, noting the change in his attitude. "You've changed your tune about this mission, Lieutenant." Cooper shrugged. "Let's just say I've had time to think during this journey. If we can cross light years to help someone in need, that says something about who we are. Something worth being part of." The repairs on Mercy took less time than expected, thanks to the combined efforts of both crews. Within 9 hours, the ships were moving again, pushing their engines to catch up with the rest of the fleet. On day 21, the Bridge of Unity erupted in excitement as the sensors detected the first signs of the Valkyrie ships. "Contact," called out the sensor operator. Multiple large objects at coordinates matching the distress signal origin. The main screen showed the image of massive vessels caught in a slow death spiral toward the collapsed star. 12 cylinder-shaped ships connected by bridge structures, their hulls covered in what looked like crystal patterns. The beauty of the design struck everyone who saw it. "They're still alive," breathed Dr. Wright, who had rushed to the bridge when the announcement came. "Look at the energy readings. Their systems are still functioning barely." Captain Grant stood from his chair. "Open a channel, broadcast on all frequencies, and use the mathematical code we developed." Diane Miller nodded and began the transmission. "This is the human vessel Unity. We received your distress call. We have come to help." For 3 tense hours, there was no response. The fleet moved closer, careful to avoid the same gravitational forces that had trapped the Valkyrie. Then finally, the communication system chimed. A signal was coming in. The main screen filled with an image that none of the humans would ever forget. A being stood before them, tall and slender, with iridescent skin that shifted colors as it moved. It had 4 arms and large, multifaceted eyes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. When it spoke, the sound was like music, rising and falling tones that the translation system worked frantically to decode. Slowly, words appeared on the screen below the image. "You came. We did not believe anyone would come." Captain Grant stepped forward. "We received your call for help. We've brought ships, engineers, and medical personnel to assist you." The Valkyrie's skin rippled with waves of blue and gold colors. The translator struggled with the next words, but the meaning was clear. "Why would you risk yourselves for us? We are strangers to you." Grant looked around at his crew before answering. The question seemed to surprise everyone except Dr. Wright, who stepped forward. "Because you needed help," she said simply. That was enough for us. The Valkyrie was silent for a moment. Then it raised all 4 hands in what seemed like a gesture of respect. "I am HFY, coordinator of the Valkyrie fleet. We have been trapped here for 61 cycles, our engines failing, our systems dying. We sent our call without hope, believing we would perish alone in the darkness." HFY's skin changed to a deep purple color. "In all our travels across the stars, we have never encountered a species willing to risk themselves for strangers. Our history taught us such things did not exist." Captain Grant smiled. "Then perhaps it's time for a new chapter in that history. We have much to learn from each other, but first, let's get your people to safety." As engineers from both species began sharing information about their ships, Dr. Wright studied the biological data being transmitted from the Valkyrie vessels. "Their life support is failing faster than they told us," she said quietly to Captain Grant. "They have less than 3 days, not 4. Grant nodded gravely. "Then we have no time to waste. The real work begins now." As the human fleet positioned itself around the trapped Valkyrie vessels, both species faced their greatest challenge, yet, working together to save over 2 million lives caught in the merciless grip of a collapsed star. "The situation is worse than we thought," Chief Engineer Jeff Richards said, pointing to the holographic display showing the Valkyrie ships. The human and alien teams had gathered in Unity's main conference room to plan the rescue. Captain Grant studied the display with a frown. The gravitational pull of the collapsed star was stronger than their initial calculations had predicted. "The tractor beams might not be enough to pull the Valkyrie ships free. We need to modify our approach," Richards continued. "The tractor beams alone won't work. We need to boost the failing Valkyrie engines at the same time as we pull them out." HFY, the Valkyrie fleet coordinator, nodded. The translator converted the ripples of color on his skin into words. "Our engines are at critical failure. They can still function for a brief surge, but not long enough to break free on their own." This meant human engineers would need to board the alien vessels, a dangerous proposition given the different air requirements. The Valkyrie breathed a nitrogen-heavy mixture with elements toxic to humans. Similarly, Earth's oxygen levels would be deadly to Valkyrie physiology. Lieutenant Nathan Reed volunteered to lead the boarding team. 20 engineers prepared for the dangerous mission, checking their sealed suits that would provide only 6 hours of air. "We'll need to work fast," Reed told his team. "The interface between our technology and theirs will be the biggest challenge." As the boarding team prepared, Escherel revealed another critical detail. "Our central vessel contains 10,000 juveniles in protective stasis. If power fails completely, an entire generation will be lost." The room fell silent as the humans absorbed this information. "That ship must be our priority," Reed declared, changing his plan. Dr. Wright joined the boarding team, bringing specialized medical equipment. "I need to see the juveniles' life support systems. If we need to evacuate them, we'll have to know exactly what they require to survive." Captain Grant addressed both human and Valkyrie teams. "We have less than 72 hours. Every minute counts. Let's get to work." The boarding operation began 6 hours later. Small shuttles carried the human teams to the Valkyrie ships. Lieutenant Reed led the first group to the central vessel, where the alien children slept in stasis. The interior of the Valkyrie ship was both alien and familiar. Corridors curved in strange angles, but the purpose of control panels and systems was often clear. The Valkyrie engineers used hand gestures and drawings to communicate with the humans when the translators struggled with technical terms. In the engine room of the central vessel, Reed and his team began the difficult work of connecting human technology to the alien systems. The Valkyrie engines were based on crystal technology that channeled energy in ways human science was only beginning to understand. "Amazing," whispered engineer Sarah Kelly as she watched a Valkyrie technician manipulate a crystal control panel. "Their entire system is built on resonance patterns." On the bridge of Unity, Captain Grant received a concerning report from the physics team led by Dr. Eric Phillips. "Captain, the star's collapse is accelerating," Phillips explained, his face grim. "We have less time than we thought. 48 hours at most before the gravitational forces become too strong for any ship to escape." Grant immediately contacted all teams. "Timetable has changed. We need to be ready to move in 48 hours. Back on the Valkyrie central ship, disaster struck. 2 human engineers collapsed when their suit seals failed, exposing them to the alien atmosphere. Valkyrie engineers rushed to help, dragging the humans to an airlock where Dr. Wright could treat them. "Their lungs are damaged," she reported after examining them. "I can stabilize them, but they need to return to Unity immediately." Despite the setback, work continued. Human and Valkyrie engineers developed a remarkably effective working relationship through shared technical drawings and improvised sign language. When words failed, mathematics became their common language. On the second day of rescue operations, Lieutenant Reed made a discovery in the central vessel's control room. "Captain, the Valkyrie have a navigation crystal," he reported to Grant. "It's like nothing I've ever seen. Escherel says it might be able to help us escape the gravity well." Grant called an emergency meeting. Escherel explained that the navigation crystal was the heart of Valkyrie technology, a unique artifact that stored not only navigational data, but the entire cultural history of their people. "The crystal can be modified to emit a repulsive gravitational field," Escherel said, colors shifting rapidly across his skin. "But the process will destroy the crystal and everything stored within it." The humans realized what this meant. The Valkyrie would be sacrificing their history, their cultural memory, to save their future. "Is there no way to preserve the data?" Dr. Wright asked. "Parts can be transferred to smaller crystals," Escherel replied, "but most will be lost. It is our choice to make." The Valkyrie leadership needed no time to deliberate. "We choose our children's future over our past," Escherel declared. With this decision made, the teams worked to create a new plan. The crystal would emit its field for only 3 minutes before burning out. In that window, all ships needed to achieve escape velocity. As the final hours approached, crews installed tractor beam connectors on all Valkyrie vessels. Human ships moved into position, their engines primed for maximum output. The modified navigation crystal was prepared for its one-time use. "Everything is in place," Richards reported from the central Valkyrie ship. "We can begin the operation on your command." Grant took a deep breath. "All ships, final position check." One by one, the vessels reported ready. The boarding teams returned to human ships except for a skeleton crew who would remain to activate the crystal. Just as the countdown began, disaster struck again. Sensors detected a sudden surge in the star's gravitational field. "The star is entering a new collapse phase," Dr. Phillips shouted. "The window of escape is closing." Grant made a quick decision. "Begin the operation now. All ships maximum power." The navigation crystal activated, glowing with an intense blue light. The tractor beams engaged, straining against the immense gravitational pull. Warning alarms blared across every vessel as structural integrity was tested beyond design limits. "We're not clearing the well's edge fast enough," reported navigator Emma Clark from Unity's bridge. "We need more power." At that moment, the sensors detected 3 new ships approaching at high speed. "More humans?" Escherel asked in surprise. A transmission came through. "This is Commander Nicole Sanders of Earth Rescue Fleet 2. Thought you could use some extra thrust. 3 additional ships, a backup fleet dispatched from Earth without official authorization, moved into formation with the struggling vessels." "Sanders, your timing is perfect," Grant replied. "Lock tractor beams and push with everything you've got." The navigation crystal burned brighter as it reached its limit. Light spilled from cracks forming in its surface as it channeled more power than it was ever designed to hold. "It's working," Clark called out as the fleet's speed increased. "We're approaching escape velocity." With a final surge of power, the crystal shattered in a spectacular flash of energy. The combined human and Valkyrie fleet broke free of the gravity well's edge just as the crystal's effect faded. Cheers erupted across both human and Valkyrie ships. They had done the impossible. 2 million lives had been saved by the combined efforts of 2 species who had not known of each other's existence 1 month before. In the quieter moment that followed, Escherel approached Captain Grant on Unity's bridge. "The crystal was our most precious possession," the Valkyrie said. "It contained our entire history, yet we did not hesitate to sacrifice it." "I understand what that cost you," Grant replied. Escherel's skin rippled with colors that the translator couldn't quite capture. "You have taught us something more valuable than history. In all our travels, we never imagined meeting others who would risk everything for strangers." As the combined fleet set course for Earth, both humans and Valkyrie knew that the journey ahead would bring new challenges, but they would face them together as the first alliance between Earth and the stars began to take shape. The journey back to Earth took 34 days. The damaged ships moved slowly, their engines no longer pushing the limits of physics. This gave humans and Valkyrie time to learn about each other. On the bridge of Unity, Captain Grant watched as Valkyrie children gathered around Dr. Wright. They had been awakened from stasis when their ship stabilized, and their curiosity about humans seemed endless. Their skin rippled with bright colors of excitement as Dr. Wright showed them pictures of Earth. "They learned so quickly," she told Grant. "Their understanding of mathematics is amazing, and they've been teaching me about their star maps. They've traveled through regions of space we've only dreamed about." The Valkyrie shared their knowledge freely. Their maps of distant stars filled gaps in human understanding of the galaxy. In return, humans offered medical knowledge and technology that helped repair the damaged Valkyrie systems. "We are more alike than different," Escherel observed one day while working with Jeff Richards to fix a power conduit. "We both seek knowledge. We both value life." "Then why were you surprised that we came to help?" Richards asked. Escherel's skin darkened. "In our 300 years of travel, we encountered other species. None offered aid without demanding payment. Some attacked us to steal our technology. We learned to hide, to avoid contact. Your response was unexpected." As the fleet approached Earth, the Valkyrie revealed more about their journey. They had fled their home system when their star began to die. Their destination was a planet they had identified as potentially habitable, still 60 years away at their normal speed. Admiral Warren, speaking from Earth, made an offer that surprised everyone. The Valkyrie can establish a temporary base on the dwarf planet Eris while they repair their fleet. Our scientists can help them improve their engines for the rest of their journey. When this offer was translated, the Valkyrie Council fell silent in shock. "You would welcome us into your solar system?" Escherel asked. "After knowing us for so short a time?" "You needed help," Admiral Warren replied simply. "That hasn't changed." News of the returning fleet with alien visitors spread across Earth. Some people expressed fear about inviting aliens into the solar system. Others argued that helping the Valkyrie was the right choice. But most humans felt proud that their first contact with alien life had been an act of rescue rather than war. As the fleet entered Earth orbit, Escherel presented Captain Grant with a small crystal fragment during a ceremony aboard Unity. "This contains a piece of our history," Escherel explained. "We saved what we could from our navigation crystal. I want you to have this piece." The crystal glowed with a soft blue light as Grant held it. "It shows the moment your message reached our ships," Escherel continued. "The moment we learned we were not alone in our capacity for compassion. We will remember this always." Captain Grant accepted the gift with humility. "This is not exceptional by human standards," he said. "This is who we try to be at our best." Escherel's skin rippled with colors that the translator interpreted as deep emotion. Perhaps that is the true mark of an advanced civilization. Not technology or power, but the willingness to help others without expectation of reward. 2 weeks later, Earth watched as the first Valkyrie delegation landed to meet with Worldio leaders. Children from both species exchanged gifts and learned each other's languages. Scientists from both worlds shared knowledge that would benefit everyone. Dr. Wright recorded in her journal, "Today I watched human and Valkyrie children playing together. They don't need translators anymore. They've created their own way to communicate. It makes me wonder how many other species might be out there waiting to be discovered. Not as threats or competitors, but as friends we haven't met yet." Captain Grant stood at the observation window of Unity, looking down at Earth. The ship would soon begin its next mission, escorting Valkyrie engineers to their new temporary home on Eris. "You know," said Commander Wells, joining him at the window. "When we left Earth, we thought we were just saving aliens. I don't think any of us realized we were changing human history forever." Grant smiled. "Sometimes the most important journeys are the ones you never plan to take." The final transmission from the Valkyrie fleet to Earth before they moved to their new home on Eris was short, but powerful. "We called for help without hope. You answered, 'We will never forget.'"